I'm excited to be here today because I want to alert you all to something really important that's going on, which is the development of age-friendly health systems. I'm inviting you today into a social movement. I want every one of you to say, I deserve an age-friendly health system. I demand an age-friendly health system. Keep that in mind as we think about what's coming up for us in the context of this wonderful NIC audience today. So, the demographic success of the last century is extraordinary. The greatest success story of the 20th century is longevity. Pacemakers, renal dialysis, antibiotics. We love that. We love longevity, but we don't like taking care of people. We don't. Otherwise, we would have focused on it, and we would have made a lot more magic than we've made to date. But here's your moment, here's your inflection point and your opportunity to think about how we celebrate this wonderful success and take a look at the ways in which we can maximize these additional years in life. So what's an age-friendly health system? It's a triple aim system where there is better care, no harm, and greater satisfaction. Why do we talk about age-friendly? Well, some of you might know that the World Health Organization in 2006 began an initiative called Age-Friendly Cities. That made sense. We looked at the ways in which cities could transform themselves so that they'd be more user-friendly to older adults and their families, making sure there was adequate park benches at regular intervals, many strategies to think about how to improve that experience. And then AARP, fantastic, developed age-friendly communities in partnership with WHO. And that has been moving beautifully. But let me tell you something, as a nurse, there is no such thing as an age-friendly city unless you have that age-friendly health system in it. Think of the disconnect. People say, I'm from Newport, New York, and we're an age-friendly community. No, you're not, if you can't get somebody the care they need, the way they want it, in the time that should be delivered. So what is our bundle, our narrative for you about age-friendly health systems? We have a set called the 4 M's, and they have to go together. We came to this with the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, IHI. Don Berwick initiated that organization many years ago. And we worked with IHI to say, let's take a look at the literature and examine the 70+ care models that are there based on science that we know improve care for older adults. We took a look, and there was a lot of redundancy in those models. You would find a PACE model, an ACE unit, a niche model. All of those acronyms are not as important as to say that there were redundancies in them. And after we looked at them for a period of time, we boiled it down to the essential 4 M's. What matters to the older person and their family? Medication, mentation, mobility. If you think about it, you will immediately recognize that any one of those off kilter will set the others into a cascade of problems. So 4 M's, a set, thinking about it. We work on this work with IHI, the American Hospital Association, which has been fantastic, and the Catholic Health Association. And our goal is to hit 20% of health systems by 2020, and we're going to do it. Let me talk about each of these a little bit in more detail. So what matters to the older individual? You know that previously people would say, what's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? Well, no, you have to shift it to what matters to you. When you do that, you fundamentally change the engagement of that clinical encounter immediately. And when I think about this, we know that it's hard in 12 minutes. You have a person come see you, and you have to move through your clinical encounter pretty quickly, no matter where it is, and hopefully it's in the location you want. But thinking about it, it's extremely hard to do, and that's the challenge, but we can do it. Let me tell you about a patient I worked with last month. Barbara, very sick. She had a very complex surgery with a resultant infection, tube strips, drains, trust me, you can imagine. And when I said to her, thinking about how to really use this, Barbara, what are your goals of care? She said, to get out of here. Of course she did. Nobody wants to be in a hospital. But then I said, okay, let's say you're out of here. Then what do you think? She said, well, and this is Barbara from the Bronx, multiple tubes, not a person with a lot of wealth. And she said, well, I'd like a little garden upstate New York, and I'd like to get some dogs so that I could walk them, and I'd like to really, spend much more time outside. This is a woman who was not about to go walking anywhere. And in that moment, I shifted all the ways in which I was thinking about working with her in order to frame it in her goals. And I follow her to this day. It reminds you not to stereotype people and to think about what they want and what they need. Medications, well, a number of older people have 3 to 5 chronic diseases or conditions. They're on 5 to 10 medications. Nobody knows what medications they're on across the system, trust me. And what's in their medicine cabinet may not be what they're taking because they might be sharing with friends and neighbors because everybody's got a good idea. Medications are something you all have to tackle. Whether you're in long-term care, or in the home care setting, or in the rehab setting, we have to get this right. The Lown Institute recently talked about deprescribing. We're all very focused on deprescribing. That has to happen, and we have to make sure that we have all the technology in place to solve this issue of medications and the things and all the sequelae of them. About 80% of people in a given year have some sort of adverse drug effect. That's a problem, and we need to make sure that we're using all the brain power in this room to address that and make it different. The other reason to really think about medications is their extraordinary expense and the way in which we have to be following that if we're thinking about what matters to the patient and what you can do for them. And I feel confident that that'll happen. Mentation, your cognition, the way you engage with the world, your mental acuity, your mentation. So I mentioned that all of these 4 M's interact: mobility, medications, mentation, what matters. And I promise you that if your medications are off, you better start paying attention to this M and thinking about all the ways that we need to be paying attention to this element of the 4 M's. We did a recent survey, and we'll be talking about it next month, and that is to say that people in our survey responded that they thought depression was normal aging. I was so sad to hear that. And it's not, and you need to know that it's a part of your mentation that you have to pay attention to. Delirium, depression, cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's disease. This is what's coming up. We have a larger number of people with cognitive impairment and a dearth of caregivers. That's why you're all here today. Remember that sometimes the issues can be, and sometimes the answers can be simple. Maybe you appear to be a little off in your mentation because your hearing aid isn't in, or because you refuse to wear them because none of us likes to wear hearing aids. Or maybe your glasses are not where they need to be, so you didn't read your pill bottle correctly. I will tell you, I'm a very basic problem solver. And if all of you think this is basic, try it, because it's hard work. And we all have to be working together to get this work right. So thinking about cognitive changes, making sure we have adaptations in the home, making sure that we do all the things we will need to do for the burgeoning number of people who will have cognitive change. Mobility. And we'll hear about mobility in a number of ways during our time together today. But mobility is one of the things people want most in life. They want to be mobile in their homes, they want to be mobile in their cars, they want to be mobile in their community. And this is so essential to our sense of well-being as people, and certainly as older adults. So it's an essential component of well-being, and one of the survey after survey will tell you one of the #1 fears of older people is fear of falling. And all of us have had an experience where a friend or a relative or somebody in our network fell, and it had terrible sequelae, really serious problems with that. So we have to make sure that we maintain mobility. The paradigm of preventing falls is kind of yesterday. We want to make sure we're enhancing mobility, keeping people strong so that they are with us in their most robust manner that they're capable of. Finally, to all of us, it's personal. This happens to be my Aunt Mary, who died at 94 of renal cancer. But until she died, until about 2 months before she died, all her 4Ms were intact. She was mobile. She had her cognitive capacity. She was on almost no medications. And she really knew what mattered to her, which was her family. And so she's the success story I want you all to strive for. And how did that happen? Well, communities coming together to really think about how to maintain her well-being, but she had some other kind of secret weapons. She had 7 kids. She lived with one of her daughters. Yes, isn't that wonderful? And she had all of us caring about her and anticipating what was going to happen next. And she did live in a continuing care community that worked really well for her. And we felt that she was safe and respected in that moment. So think about that success story. You all deserve it. So I really want to say to you, please, what will you do in your work differently tomorrow? Because I talked to you about an age-friendly health system today. We need you. Please engage with us. Do not think of this as a hospital problem. This is all in all of us. Continuity of care across settings. I know we can do it. Thank you for your attention today.